We're back. Welcome back to the live stream. We are finishing up the floor. Finally, we're getting everything done that we needed to get done today, and we're finishing the last part of the insulation in the back, and then we're moving on to prepping the wood for epoxy. So if you guys are just tuning in this afternoon, we are insulating the back of this Ford Transit. And we've already completed, we already know the layout. We have our kitchen galleys and all that stuff. So everything has been mocked up, including the power system and the water tank. So all that's been taken out. And then now, since we have all the places cut out, we have a cutout for the flip and fold seat, a cutout for the in-floor shower pan. We have 4 grade 8 bolts here going through with aluminum square tube aluminum, and there's 2 pieces here. That was in the last live stream, and we show how that is going to allow us to compress, to actually not compress the insulation. So it'll make sure there's a hard surface to mount to. So when we torque down on those bolts for the pull-out tray, it'll be nice and tight, and it won't be spongy. It won't be squishing the foam. Although this is rigid foam, when you tighten it down with a bolt, it still will compress. So the last step is we have 2 pieces of this aluminum, and we've already put in one on the last stream that was earlier today. We're going to put in the second one, and so we're going to continue to show you how I modify the insulation to fit that. I'll tell you a little bit about what happened with the wood, why I needed to trim it in a couple places, and then we'll finish up back here in the back doing one more piece. In the back here, we're going to be using what a subscriber helped me with. I'd only considered the aluminum tubing, and back here in the back, I said, oh no, it's fine, I'll use aluminum tubing. I appreciate the suggestion to use spacers. So these spacers right here. And it just so happens when I got to the back here, the corrugations in the Ford Transit, they drop off right here where these holes need to be. So if I put one of these piece of aluminum extrusion on there, it has nothing to smash down onto. So I need to have 1.25 inches plus another 1/4 steel spacer. And thankfully, Home Depot had what I needed. I bought everything they had on the shelf. They only had 5 packs of the 3/8. So I'm using these chrome spacers. And so what they're going to do is, I'll open up one real quick. So we take our bolt, make sure I got both of the bolts here. There you go. So right here, hopefully you can see this on camera now that I put the bolts in here, but these are the last 2 bolts that hold the tray in. So we got 4 up here, and then we got 2 down here. And what I explained earlier was when you pull your whole slide out tray, you need to make sure that it has a lot of leverage back there in the back. And so when you have the full extension one, there's a lot of pressure put on that back side. And if you don't have it through bolted, you might as well expect it over time to those screws or wood screws that you put into the floor to actually come out. Not saying it's going to happen, but it might happen. So what we're doing here in the back is we're just making sure that these are really keeping the tray going from front to back. That's really kind of what these are designed for. Those keep it down. So we have these, and then we have these spacers here. And then basically what we're going to do is these spacers are going to sit, and if you can imagine, this is going through the body of the van. There you go. This is going through the body of the van. Let me move my light. There you go. So So this is going through the body of the van, and then this is what sits on the sheet metal, and then this right here, we need to make sure we have enough. So now this is just for example purposes. We'll show you the real thing here in a minute. What you need, Nova? So you can see we'll space this out like that. And then that way the floor will have something to push down on, and it won't compress the foam in the back. So that's what we're going to be working with. The first thing we have to do is we're going to need to locate the wood panel on top. So something that I overlooked when I was putting this back together is I pre-drilled everything, so in theory everything should go back the way it was taken apart, right? That doesn't tend to happen in the van. So once the foam was glued down, you know, you have like a 16 and the 1/8 of an inch, and it kind of creeps a little bit. So when we eventually put in the bolts here, I had to re-drill all those 4 holes. Not a lot, but basically I had to re-drill it to find the center and then go through again. It's probably a good thing, that way when the tray goes on, the bolt's just going to drop down really nice and easy. So that was fine, but it realigned where that wood panel was, and it changed the way the first one is. So if I just gone with the panel in the first location, glued it down, then with the next panel, it would have been misaligned to the first. So now our middle panel with the 4 bolts, that's our home position, and then we'll take the front piece and bump it up there and glue it down, and then we'll take the back piece and bump up there and glue it down. And that way everything can get where it needs to be. So what we're going to do now is take our bolts, and we're going to align everything. So here's the thing. I need this aligned so that I need everything aligned so that when I go to put this bar in, it mounts up flush with the other bar, because right now there's a little bit of an offset on the right hand side. So now that you kind of see what everything looks like, we're going to take this out. We're going to take our aluminum piece. Nova is trying to get in here and help us out. This is our shop dog, Nova, if you guys haven't met Nova. All right, so when I take this piece out, you'll see what we've been working with. So this is the back. We have all of our cables managed, the ones that are going up underneath the floor, and they're in that little pocket so they don't get smushed. So nothing is going to affect them. They're in a safe place. There's no sharp edges for them to get cut on. As I say that, I need to move this one over on the right-hand side. And you don't have to be too OCD about it. You can use, like I'm using tape to kind of keep everything in this position. When you are ready, if you have anything that you think may move or get in a place that you don't want it to be, believe it or not, you can actually take a piece of the kill mat, like a little strip of it, and then use this and cover the wire. And it's a good way to permanently hold a wire in a van, because once this adhesive goes down, it does a really good job of keeping the wires where they need to be without damaging them. And another plus is this is actually going to go by the heater over there, and it's going to be used to hold our 2 6-gauge wires in place, and the little aluminum here will be like a little bit of a heat shield, so might be pretty good. All right. Let's see. Where do I want to? Oh yeah, I want to explain this back part. I don't know if you guys can see it. We're working on the back side, so I don't want to really move the camera. So just kind of go with me on this piece right here. So let me turn my phone off. All right. So back here in the back, we have this piece here. I'm actually going to take this panel off because I know there's some people that are just coming in and haven't watched it. So we got our bolts here. And now that we've opened the hole up, we should just be able to take these out quite easily. Okay, so I'll show you just quickly, and then I need to put it back down. But right here, if you guys can see, we have that piece of aluminum that is up under this piece of wood. And so we're using that so that when we put these pieces of wood together, there you go. So when we put the pieces of wood together and bolt it down, we're going to use sheet metal screws for the aluminum, and that's going to allow us to hold it in place and bolt it down on each side, and it'll keep it from making a little bubble. So that's what I talked about earlier. So now we need to put our pins back in. Okay, and once we do this, we can see this is all now in alignment. Now, as you can see from here, we have it's flush perfectly over here, but over here it dips in. And that's essentially because there's a slight turn to the first foam, slight turn to the second, and then now this is off about 1/8 of an inch. So what we need to do is we need to get this piece located with those holes, and then that way we can adjust. So see this piece of aluminum? We want to bring it in so that it's flush on both sides. It's just just clean, just like that. All right. So how are we going to do that? So now we're going to take our piece that we just took out. We're going to put it right back in. If you guys are wondering what insulation I'm using, it's the Formula 150. It's R5. It's 1 inch thick. And 1 inch thick with 1/2 inch flooring just makes it really easy to, when you're designing your van, because you can kind of play around with some 2x2s, which are 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. You know, put them on the floor, and then that way you kind of can get your height right before you actually get these pieces going. All right, so I've got this pushed in. And now all we have to do is start lining up these holes over here. Okay, so these holes are in alignment. And since that wood is coming over the lip, that's why we need to make sure it's in alignment, because if we put the foam underneath it and then put the wood on top, then this back section is not going to look the way we want it to. Actually, on second thought, I think I am going to push that to the back, because the wood lip hanging over is not going to be a big deal. All right, so we're actually going to push this to the back, and we're going to just re-drill the holes. So we're going to shift these 2 holes down. So we're going to leave that board just as it is, just like that. We need to take a permanent marker and mark out the left side. You always want to be able to draw some type of reference, because as soon as we put the plywood back on here and lay down, it's going to move this. So over here, we know this is, we're going to draw with a marker and make this our, like our home position. So we know to line it up over here, and then we're going to come over here. We're just going to make a little mark where this radius is. And yeah, so between those two, we'll know if we shifted too much. And so now, just to let you know, I did change my mind. We are pushing the foam up against it because it's not really going to make that much of a difference. So you guys will see this next piece in a different video. But I needed to modify these pieces in order for the power system inverter to come through the floor. I did not mention where I got the template to cut this out. So if you guys are looking for the template that I used, this is not a sponsored video, but AVC Rig, they supply a floor templating kit that you could buy. It's just the paper templates, so you can do it yourself. So in case you don't want to buy their pre-cut insulated flooring system, you can get the paper templates. I chose the paper templates because I was cutting a lot of material away, a lot of wood, and it just didn't make sense for me to spend a lot of money and then just cut it all up. So I did this method for this build. If you want to learn more details about them, the Evergreen, Colorado video that we just did, that film, we interview them, and then we have a link to their website in the video. So as you can see, we're moving the heck out of our piece underneath there. So the easiest way to do it is get the wood and the foam aligned, and then align the foam back to where it needs to go. Okay, so we're right where we need to go. Okay, and then what I've done is on this back side, I've pushed the foam, and the wood's hanging over just a little bit, but that's okay. We've already made sure that the wood is where it needs to be on this back trim. But before we actually glue the wood in place, I am going to make sure that the outer trim piece and the door is shut, because even though I'm telling you guys, I've done this before, but even though I've already set everything up, measured a million times, just that one last final check, it makes it all worth it. All right, I'm going to hop over here on the computer just for a second. Make sure the live stream is going okay. Okay, looks like everything's good. And I wanted to hop on and tell you guys really quickly about the DIY van build cheat sheet. So this cheat sheet, if you guys haven't heard me talk about it, it's a DIY van build cheat sheet. It's essentially an Excel sheet of the last 3 years of all the Amazon products that I purchased and I use in the shop. It's an excellent way for you guys to go through and just have a real easy way to reference parts and items that I use. Anything from like cargo, storage, electrical, fasteners. Fasteners section is essentially all the stuff I used to put together 80/20. So if you look in here, you see a lot of 5/16-18 button head cap screws. And so if you hover over it, you're going to see a link to the Amazon page, and then that way that's essentially what I've used in the past. Insulation, we have onboard air, roofing, solar. Solar's really helpful. There is these cabling kits that I like to use on Amazon. They come with the Z brackets, the MC4 connectors, already ready to go. You can size between 100, 200 watt systems, whatever you have. And then last but not least is the tool section. These are all the tools that I use in the shop. There are some missing from here, so I need to update this list. This list is a living document, so it's going to grow over time. Right now we've got over 255 items on here. So if you want to get this, it's completely free. You can go to vanbuilderhq.com. Click on the link, just put your name and email address in here. Click download now, it's going to come straight to your inbox. Again, it's 100% free, and I think it'll really help you guys out with your next fan build. All right, back to what we were talking about. All right, so this wood is in here. I've got the foam where I want it. And then I'm already noticing that, let's see here. Actually, that looks pretty good. I know the wood shifted over to the right, but I do remember when I was doing this last time that the shift was not a big deal. As long as we have our spacing on the left and right hand side, we're going to be okay. And now that I'm looking at this, there's a couple things I want to do. The right hand side has a good spacing. I'm going to go ahead and take this permanent marker, and before I drill these holes, I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it around the outside of this piece of wood, because I need to jigsaw off about another 1/8 of an inch here from this side, and then I need to take off another 1/8 of an inch on this side. And so that way this floor will actually fit very well. Okay, just need a little bit more space over there. But while it's here, and we got good spacing over here on the right hand side, we've already drilled our vent and drain holes for our tank. So I want to keep those in the same spot. Again, there's plenty of room here on this side and this side. This side's just a little tight. But the good news is our bolt holes are pretty much perfectly aligned. Let's go ahead and get the drill, and we're going to drill through to clean up where the foam is not perfect. So hopefully this is not too loud on the microphone. You want to stand on it so nothing shifts, and we're just going to go down slowly until we find our hole. And we can see that the drill's kind of tilted to the right. So if we can, we just kind of want to move it to the left a little bit. And then now we've actually lined the hole back up. And then keep standing on it. We want to do the same thing for the other side. So just slow until you can find the hole. See how much of an angle it's at, and then try to correct it. So now, yeah, we should be good to go. And then we'll just do a final check with our bolts. Boom. They go through just great. So now that you have this here, let's check we want to make sure that this thing is touching perfectly. And it is. It's perfectly touching here. It's over here and under here, that's okay. It's shifted this way, it's fine. Because this is not the end-all piece. We're going to still put the lawn sill on here, and it's going to curl up the side, and we're going to trim it flush to the edges, so it's going to cover that edge. But really, you're never going to see that because the power system comes out to here. Same thing over here, the water system is covering all that. So what we want, the whole point of what we want to do here is we want to make sure that this seam does not flex over time and create that little hump that you see in a bunch of vans. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the piece of wood back on our workbench. That way we'll take care of that. Actually, we're going to do that tomorrow. This stream is not going to be too long. Just remember, if you guys are watching, you're welcome to ask questions in the chat. Anything van related, I will answer for you. But all we're going to do in this stream is glue down the piece of foam. We're going to dry fit the piece of wood back on top of it. And then we're going to put a bunch of weight on here and then let this sit overnight. And then tomorrow we'll take our pieces of wood out. We'll modify this piece. And then we'll glue this first middle piece in. And that'll be the start to the whole process. So tomorrow, all these pieces of wood will be in 100%. And then that way we can get ready to do our epoxy floor on Monday. That is the plan. There's one thing I'm going to do off camera, and that is I'm going to come back here tomorrow when I take this off, and I'm going to cut a wire path through here because these wires are wire for our diesel heater, power supply and control, and our 12-volt power supply for our Renogy Bluetooth hub. It's not long enough to go where the other wires are. It's going to have to come straight across and then come around the heater. So we're going to go and we're going to cut a little, almost like a little triangle in there and just lay the wires down, put some tape on it, and then when we get ready to glue the floor, we'll put them in there. So that'll happen probably, I might do that during the stream, but it'll probably happen before. And right now I'm just going to do one final check with a marker. And basically I'm taking this, and any place that I think the wood is just too close to the van, we need to trim it. And the reason we do that is because it's nice and cold in the shop right now. We got the AC on. And what happens is when your van is outside in the parking lot, and it's 98 degrees outside, it might be like 120 or whatever inside your van. So you won't believe how much the floor expands. So the nice thing about the lawn steel flooring, it's very good with expansion and contraction as far as being really resilient. It's not going to buckle or anything like that. So just good to know. It's just good to do that. All right, got that, got our bolts in. So let's go ahead and take this piece of wood out. We're going to clean everything up, and then we're going to drop it back in. And put some glue on and glue the floor in. This will be exciting. And we'll also put in these pieces right here. And I will change the title of this video later. So the next time you see this video, it'll be part 5 instead of 2 part 4s. Before I do it, let me make sure, because I know a lot of people are just coming on here throughout the stream. This is our network cable for the Renogy hub. This is our cable for our Victron battery monitor. We have 2 power wires for our DC to DC chargers coming from the engine, and then the second 2 6-gauge wires. This is going to our fuse box, which is located underneath the kitchen galley. And that fuse box, this right here, is supplying all the power to all the 12-volt components inside the van. So all those cables have already been run. So they're over here, just hanging out. Over here, we're going to have our Renogy 1. Actually, you guys can't see me. Up there, we're going to have our Renogy 1 battery monitor. Renogy 1 interface for that system. We're going to have our Victron links, our Victron battery. What am I calling it? It's what monitors the shunt, and then we're going to have our Webasto heater. I think these live streams are getting to me. We're like a marathon. We've been doing this every day. But that's all right. Okay, let's go ahead and take this out. And we need to get, let's see here. It's always good to have a pair of calipers around if you have them, because we need to measure the outside diameter of this. So we got 3/4. So I want to get a 3/4 drill bit. So when I take the piece of wood off, I'm going to be able to, I'm going to tape and glue and drop these in the hole. You guys will see what I mean that in a second. So when you're building a van, just expect to, take things in and out a lot. Especially if they're panels that need to be glued, because once they're in, they're in. Okay, while that is in position, let me get this drill bit. For everybody watching, feel free to, this is a good time to ask questions while I'm pausing and kind of doing something else. So if you have a question, put it in the chat. If you're watching the stream after the fact, you can still ask a question. Try to go through the comments at least one time in the week. There we go. Probably should have taken a whole saw to that. All right, so it's good that we did that because I need to cut away a piece of the lattice back here. It's going to be in the way of our spacer. So I'm just going to use a chisel to do that. I'm gonna mute you guys for a second. I'm gonna use a hammer. All right. Now we got room for our spacers to fit in here. Boom, looking good. Another thing we're going to do tomorrow is it worked out really good with the other piece. We're going to glue this in, not cut out our part for other bar, and then tomorrow when we take the wood off, we'll go back in and then we'll trace out where we need to remove the foam, and then we'll insert this bar, and then we'll pretty much glue it all together. Let's see, actually, we need to go ahead and glue these pieces in right here, because we need these to be set up tomorrow so that we can actually, so we can drill in them. We will glue these right now. All right, so that piece is good. This piece is good. Let's get our leaf blower so we can blow out all the dust. Let's take one more look before we start applying the marine adhesive. Everything looks really good. Communications, battery monitor, cable, power for our other side. So we're doing good. All right, we are ready to do this. One thing we're not going to drill is, actually, let's see here. We're going to cut that out. When do we want to do that? It's okay. We'll cut this hole out with the foam later. We're taking the hardware from underneath the van that lifts up the spare tire, because we've oversized the tires like you do in an adventure van, and we are not going to be using this anymore because those tires will not fit underneath the van anymore. We'll keep the components in case the future customer wants to use it again, but as for the floor, there won't be a hole drilled in to access this once I disable it underneath there. if you want to put it back together, you can, find the hole, drill it, have access to it again. But tomorrow we will cut this off. So I need to make sure tomorrow, 2 things on the list are to finalize the pieces under here, take them out, and bury that wire. And then we'll talk about gluing the floor in. So Jamie asked, what is the hardest part about installing the floor? What's the most challenging? The most challenging part of the floor is what has to do with, in this scenario, the most challenging part of the floor is, let me sit down. It's the flip and fold seat because, let me rewind. There's a couple things in a van that can only be in one spot. It doesn't matter where you want stuff in the van to be. Like, for example, the shower pan and the seat take precedence over anything in the van. The reason is the seat, I got a piece of wood over here that I can show you an example of why it's important. So the bottom base of the seat has 10, this panel only has 8 things drilled in it. It actually has 10. There's 10 holes to mount that seat to the floor. And underneath the van, you have frame members. And I know this is a unibody, so I know there's not like a chassis frame. It's kind of it's a unibody. It's all one piece. I got that. But you have cross members underneath the van. And it just so happens where we wanted the seat, there's a cross member here. There's a cross member down here. And then there's a little fin here. So what happens is you got these 3 things, and you have to line up all the bolts to where they all show, and you can see them. So one's not being covered. So you have to go back and forth until you find that perfect position, and then that's your position. So before you can even put the floor in, you got to identify where that is in the van. The next thing is the shower pan. I needed to identify where the shower pan needed to go so that there's actually room underneath the van to plumb the lines for it to go to the gray tank. So, it can't be, if it goes too far forward, it's interrupting the gas tank. If it goes too far back, then the drive shaft's in the way. If it goes too far to the left, the gas tank's over there. If it goes too far to the right, there's a cross member under the van. So it's like Tetris. You gotta, once the seat is its home, you mark it. Once you find the perfect place for the shower pan, you mark it. The same thing goes for the heater. And then once all those are in place, then you need to adapt your floor around them. So once you have it marked out, you got to translate that to your floor, cut it out. And this sounds very complicated, but it's little bites. You take small chips at it every day, and it'll go by actually very smooth. I say the hardest part, besides that, is just the bringing stuff in and out multiple times. But I need to be specific when I talk about this van is, it's pretty technical. You don't have to build a van this technical. You can just lay your base floor down and then kind of work as you go. You can add a kitchen, later down the road, or you can add a fridge later down the road. You can just start with a bed and a max fan. You don't have to go all out like this. This is being built for a business. This is my van business is spec van. So this is the van to show kind of like a floor plan layout of what future vans can look like. So I say the hardest part is identifying things that you're going to put in the van that have to find a home, and that home defines where other stuff go around it. So identify that first, because regardless of what you want to do, if you rush and put the floor in, it's going to be almost impossible to locate where you need to drill a hole. Because when you have a raw van, cargo van, you can count these ribs, you can go under, you can measure stuff, you can measure off of ribs, you can subtract it, you can calculate where a hole needs to be drilled. And then, just happen to have this right here. Then you want to take a very long, just a very thin, long, but strong drill bit. Now this drill bit is about 12 inches long, and this is what I use to kind of probe where I want to drill. So I'm about 99% accurate. I don't think I've ever misdrilled anything. Not trying to show off, but I measure as much as precisely as I can. But this allows you to drill a hole. If you make a mistake, you can reseal that little tiny hole. You can actually use this drill bit to drill in an area that you're not that sure. It's a safe place to drill, but you're just not sure if that's where you want. You can drill through it anyway and have this attached to the drill, just let it hang through the van. And then underneath the van, you can take your tape measure and measure off of it, and get your kind of coordinates of where you want the next thing to go. So that's the perfect way to do it. Now imagine this. Imagine you put your whole entire floor in. It's all nice and neat. It's gray, black, or whatever. Now you're going to want to drill through the floor. And where are you going to start? You may start drilling multiple holes in your brand new floor, and you may never find exactly that location that you need. So that's why this process takes longer, but in the end, you're just going to have a much more custom kind of doing it the right way. You won't be taking shortcuts. So that was a very long answer to that question, but that's a very good question, what the hard part is. The easiest part is just kind of gluing everything together. All I'm doing these past couple of days was I'm double checking where all my stuff is. I'm just gluing in these strips. I'm putting in kill mat. So technical stuff is not that hard. Kill mat, you just cut it and just put it in. The strips, you just glue them in. Insulation, you glue them in. What you're seeing as I'm doing this live, that is the technical piece is, and maybe it's just my nature, but I do a lot of things at the same time. That's just kind of how I work. I'm not going to just do the floor or just do the electrical, because everything kind of happens together. So I needed to adjust a couple panels up front. I just take them over, make the adjustment, put them back in. I come back a little bit further, find out that my line is not as long as I need it to be. That's a modification that I schedule for tomorrow. Come back here, make sure all the electrical lines are put in. I'm not really worried about the wood. If I don't have to do a live stream, I'll just stop, I'll fix this, and then get it ready. But I just kind of do things in steps, and whatever comes about, it doesn't really stress me out, because I know if it comes up as I'm doing something, it just needs to be addressed, and make sure you don't take shortcuts. Don't take shortcuts. So let's see what else I wanted to tell you guys. Yeah, that's pretty much. That is a long-winded answer for that question, but as you guys know, all my stuff is long-winded answers. That's just the way I'm made. We got our two panels. Let's see here. What did I want to finish up on? My ADD moment here. Yes, we need to glue in our 1-inch aluminum pieces. So let's go ahead and do that. We've blown out all of our dust. Everything is nice and clean. I have already before you guys went live, I used denatured alcohol, and I've cleaned and I've grinded all those joints. So they are prepped and ready. I've already cleaned these pieces of aluminum, so everything is cleaned and prepped. So you don't see that in this video, but behind the scenes, I've already done that before this video is live. So now we are going to do some gluing. See how much I have left in this tube before I go to another tube. I'm going to use a new tube. When you're using adhesives, do not skimp. Don't try to, if you got like a little bit of a bottle left, just get a new bottle. As soon as you open bottles of solvents or adhesives and stuff like that, 9 times out of 10, there's a curing process that begins. And if you leave it overnight and you say, well, the end dried, so the inside might be good, that's not always the case. So, another $8 bottle, even though it's expensive, it should not make you rush. Okay, so I'm gonna get some gloves on, and we're going to get to gluing. Make sure you use a pad because the kill mat has like this tar stuff and it's going to get all over your pants and your shoes. Might as well just use old shoes. You can't escape it, but that's why you always see me sitting on a pad when I'm talking on the video. All right, so we're going to take our first piece of metal, and before we put it in, we're going to see what Nova wants. All right, we're back. All right, let's go ahead and take this, and we're going to, we need rag. We're going to start gluing these pieces in. Once again, if you guys have any questions, happy to answer them even while I'm working here. And I'm kind of putting the adhesive on the front part so that when I put the aluminum in, it kind of slides with it, slides on in. And you want to make sure that you have taken care of you've put the adhesive all over the bare metal, so we seal it back up. And do not get it on the wood. Don't get it on the wood. We're not doing the wood yet. We're just sliding in the aluminum and gluing it to the front face of the foam and the floor. So just the foam and the floor. So just that right angles. That's all we're doing. So I got this perfectly lined up. So now what we want to do is I'm going to put a lot of weight on here. So I can put my second piece. And yes, if you guys guessed, these are turntable cases. All right, so next, we'll get our next piece in. Let's see here. I think we're going to have to go ahead and modify this thing, this next piece of foam before we finish, because my original plan is not going to work. It just has to do. It has to do with the timeline, because we have to. Not that anybody other than me is controlling the timeline, but. Because of what's coming, because of the DIY van adapter piece that's coming in Tuesday, we have to put the lawn seal on Monday. We just have to do that. So I'm gonna do the same thing I did in the live stream that we just ended earlier today, and we're going to put this on here. We're going to trace out and we're going to cut the foam out, and then we will go ahead and glue that one in. We're going to glue that one in and to the other piece. We'll put the wood on, add all the weight, and that'll be the live stream today. Hey Thomas, welcome to the chat. All right, so I need to get my wood so I don't tear up the floor here. See if that's a good position. Yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, so yeah, we'll just put this piece in. Okay, so this is where this piece is going to go. We've got a permanent marker. We're going to cheat a little bit. We're going to trace this, and then we're going to take the foam out and go on the workbench and cut it out, as opposed to do what we did earlier, where we did everything in the van. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this out. right, guys, I'm gonna put you on mute just for a second. It's gonna be loud. I'm gonna cut, and then I'll be right back. All right. All done. Blow this off before I put it back in the van. So you guys can see. Perfect cut. If anybody knows a jigsaw competition, I would definitely enter it. I've upped the skills on my jigsaw. It's extremely accurate. Let's see here. Okay. All right, so now all we gotta do is just pull this back a little bit. Gotta put a ton of sealant, marine adhesive, and we'll almost be done with the live stream today. So if you guys are watching, you have questions, ask away, because we'll probably be done here in about 20 minutes. Of course, I say that and then something might come up, so. So the point of what I just did was to test fit this. Okay, it's gonna be fine. This will be perfect. Because I need to take, because we're now gonna glue in the whole thing. I just needed to make sure that was good. All right, we're doing it. We're gluing it. We're gluing it. Let's do one last leaf blow. Well, no, it's too late now. We've already put the adhesive down. Okay, here we go. One thing we did not do, it's one thing you gotta be careful with the live streams is, you know you're filming live, but you also need to pay attention to procedures that we need to do, which is we need to sand down, we need to scuff up our metal cross members. We already did it to where the aluminum is supposed to go, but now we got to do it over here. And as soon as we get done sanding this, we need to take denatured alcohol, clean it up. So only doing the metal ribs, no reason to do any of the other ones. Okay, we are ready to continue. Might as well hit the vinyl strips real quick while we have our... Okay. All right, that's it. Once we put it down, it's not coming back up. Now, make sure, if you're using the method like I am, you're putting a very generous strip on the vinyl pieces, because they're about a 1/16 inch shy of what they need to be. So you need to make sure that the adhesive is taking up that additional amount. One of these days I'll get a battery-powered caulk gun, but I don't got one right now. We need to put a bead on the back side of this aluminum. Not too thick, just enough for it to stick to the other piece, not crazy. Yeah, I'm just kind of like sliding it back and forth. All right, looks good. Looks good. We did get a little glue on top, so we just want to move that if we can. All right, looking good, doing good. Now we can finish up this part. Yeah, next van we're gonna get a Milwaukee caulk, electric caulk gun. And when you put the glue by the wires, make sure you put it on the furthest point away. There shouldn't be any interaction between the adhesive and the electrical wire, but you can never be too sure. So pro tip on this back side, these back areas, just put a lot of adhesive back here on this back step area. We really want this to be a cinch down area, you know, an area where, I mean, stuff is really not going to go anywhere if we can help it. That's it, look at that. Perfect, 2 tubes perfectly. Okay, so before we get too far, let's go ahead and let me get a second pair of gloves so I can handle the foam cleanly, but then I know we got some, maybe some oozing happening in a second. So I ripped my gloves, oh well. Let me get this other hand. All right, guys, here we go. So what we want to do, the most important thing here is we need to make sure that that aluminum channel is seated where we want it before we get too far. I just realized that we can just squeeze a little bit more adhesive on the back here, on the back of the piece of aluminum. I might have to open up another tube. You want adhesive on the back. The reason is we don't want anything to squeak. That is the worst thing that could ever happen in a van. Squeaking and rattling. So there is a chance if we don't solve this now or put just a little bit of adhesive on there, it's gonna squeak. That's the worst. So we put a bead on the back side of the aluminum in between, but we haven't done it on the back side of the second piece. So make sure we don't get the adhesive everywhere. There we go. All right, well, just a little bit. We just want it in the places where when the foam hits it, it has something to stop it from shifting up and down. So, I mean, technically that's the wood, but you're never going back to this, so just do it right. All right, triple check. We want to make sure we seat the aluminum. That's our priority. Look at this, see? Always double check, guys. Always double check. I forgot this side over here. Okay, did I forget anything else? No. Yeah, I did, right here. This piece right here. All right, there we go. All right, triple check. Left side, all good. Middle, all good. All the ribs, good. Okay, we're ready. This piece is ready. It's been trimmed. It's all set. All the wires are out of the way. Let's do it. And remember what we traced out earlier? So those areas are going to help us lay our foam down where it needs to be. So again, I'm being super cautious because guess what? There's an area right here that needs a wider run of caulk or adhesive. Okay. All right, still looking good. All right, this is it. It's not coming up after it goes down. Check our alignment. Okay. Take our finger and let's make sure we get these areas that I have excess kind of oozing out. That middle board's fine. We'll handle that tomorrow. I don't think there's enough adhesive to it for it to rip anything out. So right here, we've got a big glob. We're just going to take our hands and smooth over. Nice big glob. Okay. All right. So perfect. Now, the easy part. We're going to put the piece of wood on. Let's check underneath here. Everything looks good. Okay. Our big blobs are doing really good back here. All right, before this begins to start setting up, we're going to put our wood on top. Don't stand on it. Just doing this so I can position a piece of wood. And if it worked with the foam, it's going to work with the wood. So if you found a way that works for you to get it in here without tearing up your interior, try to stick with that. Now the wood doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, we have to adjust that part over there. But that line right there, you want it to be nice and flush, because now you can stand on it. Because now you want this to be even. So let me show you a pro tip. Take our cases, and again, the whole point is for us to get this seam perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those pieces of wood that we had, we're just going to set them like this, and put our cases over it. And that way, when the pressure goes down, it's going to allow the cases to distribute the weight so that it's super flush. But I need to get a better piece of wood. Okay, let's go here. And we really want to focus on this middle piece. So this is our middle. Let's go ahead and we'll put one case on. And then we're going to put the second case on. We can check here on the sides that we're nice and even. Check over here. Nice and even. Okay. So once that's finished, then you can add all the, all the crazy pieces of weight. All right, we're going to continue to my time lapse. All right, that is it, guys. We are going to, I'm not going to sit on this. I need to distribute the weight evenly. Let's see, I'll sit down here and then close this out. All right, so we just finished all the foam pieces. This is going to sit overnight. It'll be ready tomorrow. Those aluminum pieces will be ready tomorrow as well. We'll let these two pieces sit as long as possible tomorrow while we're working on the first panel, getting it coated and painted with the bonding primer. So the bonding primer and gluing the wood pieces in tomorrow night is the goal. So we'll do that. And then, what's the next thing here? We will, what's the next thing we're going to do? Yeah, Monday we'll put the lawn sill in. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode or this live stream. If you guys have any questions, make sure you put those in the chat and the comments below. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Share it to anybody that you feel may need this video if they're working on their van, doing their own DIY build, and you think it's helpful. And until then, we'll see you guys in the next live stream.